The horizon crown drifted silently between stars like a floating city carved from polished silver, its countless rings glowing with streams of blue energy that never slept. More than 40,000 beings from over 300 civilizations called the station home. Some breathed methane, others communicated with flashes of light, and a few existed almost entirely as clouds of intelligent particles. For Ethan Carter, however, it was simply another place where coffee was always too expensive. He rubbed the side of his neck as he walked toward the medical sector. A maintenance drone zipped beside him, projecting an apologetic hologram. Minor radiation exposure detected yesterday. Medical examination required. I know, Ethan sighed. You only reminded me 12 times before breakfast. Correction, 14. I appreciate your commitment to annoying me. The drone proudly beeped. The medical wing looked more like a museum than a hospital. Transparent walls displayed living galaxies suspended inside magnetic fields, while robotic physicians glided silently across the polished floor. Every patient was welcomed by an artificial intelligence capable of speaking nearly every known language, including several that required clicking teeth Ethan fortunately did not possess. Welcome back, Mr. Carter, the AI said pleasantly. How would you rate your current condition? I've had worse Mondays. Today is Thursday. That explains why the week feels so long. A nearby alien nurse covered her mouth to hide a laugh. The examination itself seemed routine. Ethan stepped inside a circular scanner where ribbons of pale blue light rotated around him. Nanoscopic particles floated through the air, reading every cell in his body, while quantum sensors examined his genetic code molecule by molecule. The entire process normally lasted less than 30 seconds. 20 seconds passed. Then the machine froze. The pleasant music stopped. Every light inside the chamber turned crimson. A mechanical voice echoed through the room. Verification sequence initiated. Ethan blinked. I didn't break anything, did I? No one answered. Outside the scanner, technicians stared at floating holographic displays with expressions that grew stranger every second. One scientist removed his glasses, cleaned them twice, then quietly placed them back on as if clearer lenses might somehow repair reality itself. Another restarted the system. The same warning immediately returned. Impossible, someone whispered. A senior geneticist hurried into the laboratory. Run the comparison again. It already has. Again. It has repeated itself 11 times. Ethan slowly raised one hand. Should I start apologizing now, or are we waiting until we know what exploded? Nobody laughed this time. Streams of encrypted symbols flooded every display. Hidden security protocols activated without human authorization. Doors throughout the laboratory sealed automatically. The station's central intelligence suddenly interrupted every terminal. Priority Omega notification. Genetic compatibility anomaly detected. Scientists exchanged confused looks. Compatibility with whom? One asked. The answer appeared across every screen at once. Subject: Ethan Carter. Match found. Compatibility 100%. Royal Genetic Database. Identity confirmed. Queen Elyra of the Alari Empire. Silence swallowed the laboratory. Ethan scratched his head. So, he said carefully, does this mean I qualify for a family discount somewhere? The laboratory remained frozen in silence for nearly half a minute. Nobody reached for a keyboard. Nobody spoke. Even the maintenance drones hovering beneath the ceiling suspended their patrol routes, as if the station itself had become uncertain about reality. Then every console erupted with alerts. Warning: Royal Genetic Database accessed. Cross-verification in progress. Integrity check initiated. The chief geneticist swallowed hard. Disconnect the station from the interstellar network. A technician shook her head. I can't. What do you mean you can't? The command has already been overridden. By whom? Nobody knew. Thousands of kilometers beneath the station's outer hull, Horizon Crown's quantum core had activated security routines that had not been used in over 4 centuries. Invisible encryption walls surrounded the laboratory, sealing every byte of information inside. Ethan looked around at the increasingly nervous scientists. I've seen this expression before. Several heads turned toward him. It usually happens right before someone tells me overtime is mandatory. Not a single laugh. Tough crowd. A young researcher cautiously approached him carrying a floating scanner. Mr. Carter, we'd like to repeat the examination. Again? For the 23rd time. I wasn't this popular in school. The scanners surrounded him with shimmering rings of violet light. Millions of microscopic medical nanites drifted around his body like glowing dust, reading every strand of DNA individually. The machine hummed for several seconds. Then it displayed exactly the same result, 100.000000% compatibility. The young researcher's face turned pale. Impossible. At that exact moment, every screen inside the laboratory switched to black. No one had touched them. A single silver symbol appeared, a crown surrounded by 7 stars. The room became even quieter. One elderly scientist whispered, "The Alari Royal Seal." The doors slid open. Station security entered first, dressed in sleek combat armor covered with adaptive energy fields. Behind them walked diplomatic officers, wearing expressions that suggested every problem in the galaxy had just become theirs. One officer spoke calmly. "Nobody leaves this laboratory." Ethan slowly raised his hand. "I was actually hoping to grab lunch." The officer looked at him. "That won't be possible." "I figured." Before anyone could continue, the station trembled, not violently, gracefully, like something unimaginably large had settled into orbit. The panoramic windows automatically cleared. Beyond them floated a starship unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. It was enormous. Its surface shimmered with living crystal instead of metal. Vast golden wings of energy extended from its sides, illuminating nearby ships with soft blue light. Smaller escort vessels emerged from hyperspace around it in flawless formation. Every civilian vessel immediately cleared a path. Traffic control didn't even issue instructions. Nobody needed to. One technician stared through the window. "The Imperial flagship," another quietly finished the sentence. "The Queen herself is here." Minutes later, the station's public announcement system echoed through every corridor. "Attention all personnel. Her Majesty, Queen Elyra of the Alari Empire, has requested immediate diplomatic clearance." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "I knew I should have ignored that radiation leak." The laboratory doors opened once more. This time, everyone instinctively stood. A procession of royal guards entered with perfect discipline. Their silver armor reflected the laboratory lights like liquid mirrors. Behind them walked a woman who looked almost completely human. Almost. She possessed graceful, elegant features, calm, silver blue eyes, and long, flowing hair that shimmered like moonlight. The only unmistakable difference was her long, beautifully shaped ears, extending gracefully through her hair, the proud mark of the Alari people. She carried no visible weapon. She didn't need one. The confidence with which she walked silenced the room more effectively than an army. Queen Elyra stopped a few steps in front of Ethan. She studied him carefully, not with suspicion, with genuine curiosity. Ethan blinked twice before offering an awkward smile. "So, should I apologize first, or do you usually meet complete strangers after they've accidentally crashed your genetic database?" For the first time since entering the laboratory, the Queen smiled. For several long seconds, Queen Elyra's smile remained the only movement inside the laboratory. It was not the confident smile of a monarch greeting a subject. It was the curious expression of someone who had just encountered a mystery older than history itself. "I believe," she said in a calm, melodic voice, "this is the first diplomatic reception in which the guest has apologized before saying hello." Ethan gave an embarrassed shrug. "I found it saves time." A few scientists finally laughed, grateful for anything that eased the suffocating tension. The Queen's long ears shifted slightly as she turned toward the holographic displays. The glowing genetic report floated above the central table, still refusing to change despite dozens of verification attempts. "Run the comparison in my presence," Elyra ordered. The chief geneticist nodded immediately. "Yes, Your Majesty." New scanners descended from the ceiling. Unlike the previous equipment, these machines belonged to the Imperial Alari Medical Corps. Their silver frames unfolded like metallic flowers, while thousands of emerald lights began rotating around both Ethan and the Queen. The laboratory lights dimmed automatically. A sphere of shimmering particles surrounded them. Every atom inside the chamber seemed to vibrate. One technician whispered, "They're using quantum hereditary resonance." Another answered without taking his eyes off the scanners, "I've only read about this technology." Invisible waves passed through Ethan's body. The sensation was strangely warm. Does it always feel like being hugged by electricity?" he asked. The royal physician looked up. "No." "Oh, that is unusual. I was afraid you were going to say that." The examination continued. Instead of comparing ordinary DNA, the machines began reading quantum memories embedded within genetic structures, tracing evolutionary patterns millions of years into the past. Lines of impossible equations raced across every screen. The station's artificial intelligence suddenly interrupted. External intrusion detected. Everyone froze. Origin unknown. Security officers immediately activated shimmering energy shields around the laboratory. The chief technician frowned. "We're under attack?" "No weapons detected," answered the AI. "The intrusion targets genetic archives only." Someone wanted the data, not Ethan, not the Queen, the results. Streams of encrypted code flooded the displays before disappearing again as the station's defensive algorithms fought back. Elyra watched silently. "Whoever is responsible," she murmured, "already knew something." The scanners chimed. Analysis complete. The holographic image expanded. Once again, 100% compatibility. But beneath the familiar result appeared something entirely new. Hidden sequence detected. Classification? The room fell silent. The royal physician leaned closer. "I have never seen this marker." The chief geneticist enlarged the image until a twisting strand of luminous symbols filled the room. "It isn't damaged DNA. No. It almost looks—" He hesitated. "Engineered." Ethan stared at the glowing strand. "I don't know much about genetics," nobody interrupted. "But DNA usually doesn't come with decorative patterns." One scientist blinked. "He's right." The hidden sequence repeated itself at mathematically perfect intervals, almost like an encrypted language hidden inside living cells. Before anyone could investigate further, every holographic display flashed brilliant white. Then an unfamiliar symbol appeared. 7 concentric circles surrounding a single star. The station AI spoke again, but its voice had changed. The tone was older, colder, almost ancient. Recognition confirmed. Every hair on Ethan's arm stood upright. "Authorized descendants detected." Nobody had entered those words. Nobody aboard Horizon Crown had programmed that voice. The message continued. Primary inheritance protocol awaiting activation. The laboratory lights flickered. Somewhere deep beneath the station, massive machinery that had remained dormant for untold ages began awakening. Elyra slowly looked at Ethan. "I no longer believe this is merely a genetic coincidence." Ethan forced a nervous smile. "I was really hoping this week would stay boring." The floor trembled softly, not from the station, from something responding across the stars. The faint vibration beneath Horizon Crown did not fade. Instead, it settled into a slow, rhythmic pulse, almost like the heartbeat of some colossal machine hidden beneath layers of alloy and artificial gravity. Across the laboratory, holographic displays flickered with symbols that no translation program could recognize. Yet somehow, everyone looking at them felt they were staring at something meant to be understood. Queen Elyra stepped closer to the floating projection. Her long ears tilted slightly, a subtle sign of concentration among the Ayalari. Silver light reflected across her calm face, while the mysterious 7-ring emblem slowly rotated above the central table. "Our archives contain nothing like this," she admitted. The chief geneticist looked almost offended by reality itself. "My archives don't even contain archives for this." Ethan folded his arms. "So we're officially in the nobody knows anything phase?" Several technicians chuckled. "It appears so," the Queen replied with an amused smile. Before another question could be asked, the laboratory's quantum sensors detected a powerful burst of energy somewhere beyond the station. The holographic star map instantly expanded, revealing dozens of nearby systems. Tiny blue markers blinked across the map before converging on a single forgotten region at the edge of explored space. One scientist adjusted the image. "That sector has been abandoned for thousands of years." Another frowned. "It shouldn't be transmitting anything." The ancient voice returned through every speaker. Signal acknowledged. Coordinates materialized beneath the rotating emblem. No language, just mathematics. Perfect geometric ratios describing a destination older than every civilization represented aboard Horizon Crown. The station AI struggled to analyze them. Coordinates verified. Destination? Unknown. Ethan rubbed his forehead again. "I miss yesterday." You said yesterday was terrible, one technician reminded him. I've revised my opinion. The room laughed more freely this time. Even the royal guards allowed themselves faint smiles. Suddenly, another alarm interrupted the moment. Unauthorized transmission intercepted. Everyone turned toward the communications console. A hidden packet of encrypted data had slipped through the station's defenses during the earlier cyber attack. Someone had successfully stolen part of the genetic report. The chief security officer cursed quietly. They weren't trying to erase the evidence? They wanted to copy it, Elyra finished. Her expression became serious. If that information reaches certain factions, she didn't need to continue. Every diplomat in the room understood. A perfect genetic match between a human and the Elyra Queen could become a weapon, a political claim, or the spark for interstellar conflict. The chief geneticist enlarged the mysterious DNA sequence once again. Something had changed. Tiny sections of the strand were glowing. They're reacting, he whispered. To what? He looked toward Ethan and Elyra. To proximity. As they unconsciously stood closer together, the hidden genetic symbols aligned like gears inside an invisible machine. New fragments appeared between them, forming a lattice of luminous patterns suspended in midair. The laboratory lights dimmed. A narrow beam of pale gold descended from nowhere, connecting the projection to the star map. The forgotten coordinates pulsed brighter. Ethan stared upward. I've officially run out of logical explanations. Queen Elyra smiled. I exhausted mine several minutes ago. The beam suddenly expanded into a three-dimensional image. For less than 2 seconds, everyone saw the outline of an enormous structure orbiting a dark, lifeless star. Then it vanished. Silence returned. The station AI finally spoke. Location identified. A pause followed. Ancient installation predating all recorded galactic history. No one breathed. Elyra slowly turned toward Ethan. I believe, she said quietly, our ancestors have just invited us to visit. Ethan sighed. I knew this medical checkup was going to cost more than my insurance covered. Preparations began before anyone had time to question them. Within an hour, Horizon Crown's busiest docking bay had transformed into the headquarters of an unprecedented expedition. Scientists loaded quantum analyzers into armored cargo pods, while engineers assembled drones capable of surviving inside structures billions of years old. Royal Elyra guards stood beside human security officers, both groups equally aware that they were protecting knowledge capable of changing galactic history. Outside the station's panoramic shields, Queen Elyra's magnificent flagship waited patiently, its crystalline hull reflecting entire star systems like liquid glass. Smaller escort vessels drifted around it in disciplined silence, their engines glowing softly against the darkness. Ethan watched the activity while carrying a crate that definitely weighed more than the label claimed. I became an engineer, he muttered, because I was told there wouldn't be heavy lifting. A loading robot rolled beside him. Your statement is statistically inaccurate. I've noticed. The robot paused. Would you like emotional encouragement? Ethan smiled. I'm curious. You are lifting the crate adequately. I feel inspired already. Nearby technicians laughed, grateful for the brief relief. Inside the command chamber of the flagship, a three-dimensional projection of the mysterious coordinates rotated above a circular table. Every attempt to identify the ancient installation had failed. The databases of the Alliance, the Elyra Empire, and even forgotten archaeological networks returned the same result. No records, no legends, no myths. It was as though the place had been intentionally erased from history. Queen Elyra rested one hand against the edge of the holographic table. Her long ears caught the blue light as she studied the rotating equations. Someone hid this location, she said quietly. Or something, answered the chief archaeologist. Before anyone could continue, the communications officer stiffened. We're receiving encrypted traffic. Source? Multiple governments. One message after another appeared across the display. Request access to the data. Transfer the human immediately. Royal authority disputed. Biological discovery. Subject to galactic review. Then came another message. Unsigned. Much shorter. Do not go to the coordinates. The room fell silent. Ethan looked around. I don't suppose mysterious anonymous warnings ever mean have a pleasant vacation. No, Elyra answered. They usually mean the opposite. The fleet departed an hour later. As the flagship entered hyperspace, brilliant streams of folded starlight surrounded the vessel. Outside the viewing dome, reality stretched into shimmering ribbons while gravity folded elegantly around the quantum engines. Ethan stood beside the Queen, fascinated. I'll never get used to this view. Neither will I, Elyra admitted. He looked at her in surprise. I thought Queens had seen everything. She smiled gently. The universe is much too large for that. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden tremor, not inside the ship, inside hyperspace itself. Warning symbols erupted across every console. Unidentified vessels approaching. They're matching our quantum corridor. The tactical officer enlarged the display. 3 dark ships emerged from distorted space without transmitting identification codes. Their hulls absorbed surrounding light, making them appear like moving shadows. They're jamming communications. They don't want witnesses, another officer observed. The flagship's defensive shields activated instantly, surrounding the fleet with brilliant layers of sapphire energy. Ethan quietly leaned toward the tactical display. I have one important question. The captain looked at him. Yes? Does our travel insurance cover ancient mysteries and mysterious attackers? Several bridge officers laughed despite the growing danger. Even Queen Elyra shook her head with quiet amusement. You continue making jokes at remarkable moments. I find panic incredibly unproductive. Before anyone could respond, one of the shadow vessels transmitted a single sentence through every speaker. The descendants must never reach the inheritance. The transmission ended. Then every enemy ship accelerated at once, racing toward the flagship as the ancient coordinates continued glowing silently on the navigation display, waiting for Ethan and Elyra to uncover a secret that someone had protected for millions of years. The 3 shadow vessels accelerated without hesitation, their dark hulls cutting through hyperspace with unnatural precision. Instead of firing conventional weapons, they released shimmering waves that distorted the quantum corridor itself. Space folded like rippling water, forcing Queen Elyra's flagship to shudder as warning lights illuminated the bridge. Quantum turbulence rising! The navigator shouted. Our jump corridor is collapsing! The captain gripped the command console. Stabilize the engines. We're trying. Outside the viewing dome, brilliant streams of hyperspace twisted into enormous spirals. The escort cruisers struggled to maintain formation, while defensive shields flickered under invisible pressure. Ethan stared through the glass. I've officially decided normal traffic jams are underrated. Several officers laughed despite themselves. The Queen glanced toward him. You have an unusual talent. For engineering? For making nervous people breathe again. Before Ethan could answer, the flagship's artificial intelligence interrupted. Collision probability increasing. One of the shadow ships suddenly disappeared. Where did it go? Asked the captain. The answer arrived a heartbeat later. It is behind us. A dark vessel emerged directly above the flagship, bypassing every sensor. Instead of attacking, it projected a column of crimson light toward the bridge. Within the beam floated thousands of unfamiliar symbols. The same 7-ring emblem appeared again, only this time it was broken. The ancient voice echoed through every speaker. Inheritance denied. Guardians remain. Queen Elyra frowned. Guardians? The chief archaeologist leaned toward the display. I don't think these ships belong to a modern civilization. The bridge fell silent. They're automated. No biological life detected. The realization spread through the room. Machines, ancient ones, still carrying out orders issued millions of years ago. Ethan scratched his chin. So we've been threatened by museum exhibits. They appear extremely well-maintained museum exhibits, the captain replied. Without warning, the coordinates on the navigation display began glowing again. The flagship itself answered, not by choice. The hidden genetic sequence inside Ethan and Elyra activated simultaneously. A faint golden light spread beneath their skin. Everyone stared. Medical scanners instantly focused on them. No increase in body temperature, no radiation, no cellular damage. The chief physician looked completely bewildered. The light is coming from inside their DNA. The glowing patterns expanded into the air, forming countless luminous strands between Ethan and the Queen. They resembled living constellations woven from golden threads. The bridge suddenly became perfectly silent. The shadow ships stopped attacking. Every enemy vessel rotated toward Ethan and Elyra. Then something impossible happened. The crimson symbols vanished. The broken 7-ring emblem slowly repaired itself. One circle after another became whole. The ancient voice spoke once more. Identity corrected. Recognized descendants confirmed. Every hostile vessel powered down. Weapons disappeared. Engine signatures diminished. The bridge crew exchanged stunned looks. "They're saluting us," whispered one officer. Outside, the three ancient ships slowly moved aside, forming a corridor through hyperspace. No attack, no warning, an invitation. The navigator pointed toward the stars ahead. "The route is open." The flagship advanced cautiously. Minutes later, hyperspace dissolved around them. Normal space returned, silence filled the bridge. Directly ahead floated a black star that emitted almost no visible light. Orbiting it was a structure so enormous that every person aboard instinctively stood. It was neither station nor planet. Concentric rings surrounded an immense sphere covered in silver cities, crystalline towers, and glowing rivers of energy that continued flowing despite millions of years of abandonment. The entire installation remained intact, waiting. The sensors finally completed their analysis. Estimated age, 8,400,000 years. No one spoke. Ethan slowly looked at Queen Elyra. "I suppose this is the part where someone says, 'Don't touch anything.'" The Queen smiled. "I was about to say exactly that." As the flagship approached the silent megastructure, millions of dormant lights awakened across its surface one after another, stretching to the horizon like stars opening their eyes. Something inside the ancient city had sensed their arrival, and this time it was welcoming them. The flagship descended through the immense rings of the ancient structure without encountering a single defense system. Instead, countless streams of golden light flowed alongside the vessel, as though guiding honored guests home after an impossibly long absence. Towers of crystal stretched toward the darkness surrounding the dead star, their surfaces alive with symbols that awakened one after another until the silent city glittered like a second galaxy. The landing platform illuminated the instant Ethan and Queen Elyra stepped onto it. A gentle vibration spread beneath their feet, not threatening, welcoming. The glowing pathways ahead formed by themselves, leading them toward a vast circular chamber crowned by a transparent dome through which the black star could be seen. At the chamber's center floated a sphere of white light. When Ethan and Elyra approached together, the sphere unfolded into a towering hologram of a humanoid figure woven entirely from stars. Its voice carried neither age nor emotion. At last, no one spoke. The being looked at Ethan, then at Elyra. "The preservation protocol has succeeded." Millions of tiny lights emerged from the walls, each containing fragments of forgotten history. Entire galaxies appeared in miniature around the chamber. "We were the first navigators," the hologram continued. "When the Great Collapse consumed thousands of civilizations, we seeded compatible life across distant worlds. Species were not created to conquer one another. They were designed to survive together." The hidden genetic sequence appeared again, now fully translated. It was not a royal code. Not a weapon. It was an identification key, ensuring that distant descendants could recognize one another when the galaxy was ready. Queen Elyra's silver blue eyes remained fixed on the projection. "So humanity and the Elari," the hologram replied, "are branches of the same promise." Around them, every dormant archive awakened. The evidence was overwhelming. 8 million years of history could no longer be hidden. Far across the galaxy, governments that had attempted to steal or suppress the genetic data suddenly found themselves unable to deny the truth. The ancient installation transmitted authenticated records through quantum relays beyond anyone's control. Every inhabited world received the same message simultaneously. Not one empire, one family of civilizations. Silence settled over the chamber. Ethan finally exhaled. "So, the biggest mystery in galactic history turns out to be an extremely delayed family reunion." To everyone's surprise, the hologram paused, then answered, humor detected. A faint tone echoed through the chamber. Acceptable. Even the ancient intelligence had learned to appreciate the moment. Laughter spread through the expedition team, breaking the tension that had followed them across the stars. Queen Elyra looked toward Ethan, her long ears catching the soft golden light. "When we met," she said, "I believed this journey would answer questions about biology. And now? Now I believe it answered questions about trust." Ethan smiled. "I came in for a routine medical exam. You certainly chose an expensive clinic." Satir. Scientists laughed. Months later, Horizon Crown resumed its peaceful voyage. Political alliances slowly transformed into scientific partnerships. Human and Elyra researchers worked side by side, exploring technologies left behind by the first navigators instead of fighting over them. The mysterious cyber attack was traced to a coalition that had feared losing power if the truth emerged. Once the ancient archives became public, their influence quietly dissolved. Ethan declined every title offered to him. He refused honorary nobility, scientific councils, and political office. He remained what he had always been, an engineer. Only now, whenever a scanner malfunctioned, an entire laboratory became nervous. As he entered another routine medical examination months later, the same maintenance drone floated beside him. "Please enter the scanner." Ethan stopped at the doorway. "I have one question." "Proceed." If reality breaks again, the drone processed the request for several seconds. "Please fill out the paperwork yourself." For the first time since anyone could remember, the drone answered with a tiny electronic chuckle. Ethan stepped into the scanner smiling, no longer seeing the galaxy as a collection of distant strangers, but as countless worlds connected by an ancient promise that had finally found its voice again.